For today's In Focus, we travel to Cambodia and the site of Ta Prohm in the Siem Reap province. For it was here in the early 20th century that French archaeologists were combing the Cambodian jungle. One day, as if from a script for an Indiana Jones movie, wondrous architecture began to emerge from the dense vegetation. However, the archaeologists were not as surprised as you might think. These archaeologists were from the French school of the Far East. Their Parisian office pictured here, they had since 1907 been charged with the task of ascertaining the extent, conserving and restoring in some cases the Angkor temples, the most famous of which probably being Angkor Wat, pictured here in the 19th century. As the site was explored, it was clear that Ta Prohm had been reclaimed somewhat by the jungle, but this reclamation had a certain picturesque beauty, and the archaeologist walked a very delicate line between restoration and conservation. Archaeologist Maurice Glaise remarked that Ta Prohm was one of the most imposing remains and the one which had best merged with the jungle, but not yet to the point of becoming part of it. And so the archaeologists worked to preserve the character of the site by shoring up the architecture where necessary, but using a sympathetic hand in partnership with the jungle. The layout of Ta Prohm is a typical flat Khmer or Cambodian temple. The outer wall measures 1,000 by 650 metres, enclosing an area of 650,000 square metres. This would have been the location of a fairly large town supporting and supplying the temple. There are a total of 5 enclosing rectangular walls around a special place or sanctuary. The whole site is orientated towards the east, with the temple set a little to the west along that axis. Entrance to the site was via gopuras, or entrance buildings, located on the north, south, east and west sides of the perimeter. Today, access is only possible via the eastern and western entrance, and at one point a moat would have run on the inside and the outside of the outer perimeter wall. During the 13th century, so-called face towers were added to the gopuras. Precisely whom or what they portray, human or divine, is a matter of debate. Within the temple proper, the 3 enclosures are galleried. The 4 towers on the outer enclosures form a quincunx with the central tower of the sanctuary. A quincunx is the pattern of the number 5 on a dice, 4 corners with a central point. Other buildings within the enclosures include libraries, not for storing books, but rather buildings where religious activities would occur. There are some smaller satellite temples to the north and south. There's the so-called Hall of Dancers with some exquisite carvings. As the name implies, this was a place for Buddhist dance rituals. And also the House of Fire, east of the 4th Eastern Gopura. Ta Prohm was constructed as part of a program of public works commissioned by Jayavarman VII in 1186 AD. The temple was dedicated to the personification of wisdom, modelled after the king's mother, along with 2 satellite temples, one dedicated to his guru and the other to his elder brother. In 1191 AD, a complementary pair was formed when the temple at Priya Khan was completed. This was dedicated to the personification of compassion, modelled after the king's father. According to temple records, Ta Prohm was once home to more than 12,500 people. This included 18 high priests and 615 dancers. The temple became incredibly rich, amassing gold, pearls and silk. And in the surrounding settlements, around 800,000 villagers supplied the temple with goods and services. Other Cambodian temple sites, such as the famous Angkor Wat, which deserves a video in its own right, are replete with so-called narrative relief or carvings on the wall which tell stories. Ta Prohm is curiously lacking such stories. This may be due to the action of Hindu iconoclasts smashing and defacing elements of the Buddhist temple following the death of King Jayavarman VII, who built the temple originally to honour his mother. Some truly beautiful elements remain, however, including a bas-relief of the young Siddhartha leaving his father's palace, destined to become the Buddha. Following the fall of the Khmer Empire, around the 17th century, Ta Prohm was finally abandoned and left to the jungle. Until, in the early 1900s, French archaeologists effectively rediscovered the temple. In the past century, Ta Prohm has become renowned for its beauty, existing as it does on the cusp between human and natural order. The impressive architecture of Ta Prohm is matched in kind by the awesome, uncompromising, yet elegant forms of the jungle. It is hardly surprising, therefore, that this archaeological site inspires artists and painters. Even scholars are moved to excess. On every side, in fantastic overscale, the trunks of the silk cotton trees soar skywards, under a shadowy green canopy, their long spreading skirts trailing the ground, and their endless roots coiling more like reptiles than plants. And indeed, when an intriguing, mysterious location was required for 2001's Tomb Raider movie, this is where Hollywood came. So Ta Prohm is the quintessential jungle temple and a tourist hotspot because of it. It is of course an archaeological site, but more than this, it is a remarkable case study in the relationship that archaeologists must bear in mind between archaeology, history, and the natural world. This is a balance which we don't always get right. In the same way we don't always get the balance between archaeology and living communities entirely right. And it is this balance I will touch on in a future video about Angkor Wat.